In the name of God, this is session 10 of your syntax lesson. As you know, in the previous sessions we talked about the case system and the nominative and accusative case system and the case filter and other parts related to the case system. In this session, I want to talk about another parts of the case system. The first structure is passivization, in which I want to talk about it in this session. Passivization and argument structure. Look at these examples. Italy beat Belgium in the semifinals. This is a kind of active sentence. Okay, we have the verb, the subject, the object, and that's okay. The second sentence, look at it. Belgium were beaten in the semi-final. This is a kind of passive sentence. Okay, we moved the object to the subject position and we delete the subject. So and we change the form of the verb. Beat becomes were beaten. So Belgium were beaten in the semi-finals is a kind of passive sentence. Again, Belgium were beaten by Italy in the semi-final. We use the agent here, the subject, Italy, but by use a kind of preposition, by Italy. These two are passive sentences. Okay, so the agent role here, we talk about the theta roles in the previous sessions. This Italy in this active sentence is a kind of agent role. It's agent. So the agent role is not absent in the passive sentence. Rather, they claim it is absorbed by the passive morphology and the verb. So the external theta role cannot be assigned to an NP in an A position, like here the subject position, because it is absorbed by the passive ending. So when the agent needs to be expressed overtly like this, it is expressed by means of an adjunct prepositional phrase with by, like here. If we we want to say the agent overtly, we should use it by a kind of preposition, by Italy, as you see here. So this is the structure, the passive sentences. So what is what can I talk about what can we say about the case system in the passive sentences? A passivized verb, like the previous examples as I told you, loses the ability to assign a structural accusative case to its complement. Okay, so the passive verb cannot assign accusative case to its complement. So what should we do for this case assigning? The movement of an NP from the object to the subject position in passive sentences is obligatory. Because why? Because this is the only way that such NPs can pass the case filter. Again, look at the previous examples. You see here, the Belgium here is the complement of the verb. In the first sentence, we have a kind of active sentence, and there is no problem. The active sentence can assign accusative case to the NP, the object So there is no problem. But if the verbs become a kind of passive verb, so it cannot assign case to the Belgium. So Belgium should move to the subject position. So you see here, the Belgium in the active sentence is after the verb, but here is before the verb. So it moves to to the subject position before the verb. Why? Because the passive verb cannot assign accusative case to its complement. So the movement is obligatory here. Okay, for what? For case filter. Okay, for passing the case filter. So again, you see, you look at the examples. I believe Emsworth to have attacked Poirot. That's okay. The verb can assign accusative case, and this is kind of again accusative case to the subject. It's a kind of exceptional case marking. Look at another example. I believe Poirot to have beaten attack. You see here, because have been attacked is a kind of passive sentence. A passive verb cannot assign, case the Poirot here moves to the subject position, so this is okay. Look at another example. It was believed Emsworth to have attacked Poirot. Here the verb can assign accusative case to the Poirot, but here Emsworth, the MP, cannot assigned by the verb, because this is a kind of passive verb. It was believed. It cannot assign case to the Emsworth, so this is ungrammatical. You see here why? Because this MP doesn't have case. Okay, because the passive verb cannot assign case to the MP. And again, look at this example. It was believed that Emsworth had attacked Poirot. You see here we have a finite clause here. In the above example we have a non-finite sentence. Here we have a kind of finite sentence, so had can assign nominative case to Emsworth, and that sentence is okay. So we can conclude that the passive verb cannot assign case to the complement, to the object, so the object should move to the subject position for passing the case filter. This is the properties of passivization. First, number one, the verb morphology is affected. Okay, you see here the verb changed. Okay, the form of the verb changed. Second, the external theta role of the verb is absorbed. Third, the structural case of the verb is absorbed. Number four, the MP, which is assigned the internal theta role of the passive verb, moves, okay, to a position where it can be assigned case, as you see in the previous examples. Number five, the movement of the MP is obligatory, okay, in view of the case filter. And the last one, the movement of the MP is allowed because the subject position is empty. As you see in the example here, the subject position is empty, so the Belgium can move to the subject position. This is the properties of passivization and passive sentences. Okay, here we have the double object construction in English. Okay, look at the example. If it is a property of inherent case that is survives passivization, then it could be argued that genitive is not the only inherent case in English. Okay, for example, I gave John a book. This is a kind of double object construction. John was given a book. Okay, you see here we move John to the subject position. This is a kind of passive verb. The direct object, a book, here you see in 56, is a problem, though if it is assigned a structural accusative case by the active verb in 56 A, then it is not obvious why the accusative is not affected by the passivization. If the MP a book is not assigned accusative by the verb, then what is its case? Okay, one approach would be to say that in this sentence the direct object is inherently case marked. Okay, so when we have a kind of double object, one of them assign a kind of a structural case, and the other the direct object is inherently case marked. So inherent case is not lost under passivization. We can conclude that inherent case isn't lost under passivization. So in double object construction, we can conclude that one of them is assigned a structural case and the other inherent case, and the inherent case is not lost under passivization. This is the form of double object construction. In case system, we have another condition which we call it visibility. Okay, again explaining the case filter. The case filter is no longer an independent property of the grammar. Rather, it derives from the visibility requirements on NP. This property in itself is related to theta theory. In order to be recognized as an argument of some predicate, an NP must be made visible. Invisible NPs cannot be assigned a theta role. So there is a kind of relationship between visibility and theta theory. As I told you, invisible NPs cannot be assigned a theta role. So then based on this, I mean visibility condition, I want to talk about the movement and chains. Okay, in order to incorporate the idea of visibility and chain formation, we reformulate the theta criterion in terms of chain. Look at this theta criterion. Each argument A appears in a chain containing a unique visible theta position, P, and each theta position, P, is visible in a chain containing a unique argument A. And the second one, a position P is visible in a chain if the chain contains a case mark position. This is a theta criterion which discussed by Chomsky. This is the condition of theta criterion. So let's assume that theta roles are assigned to positions, theta positions. One possibility is that an argument A appears in the theta position P. In this case, it picks up the theta role in its position. We could say there is a one-member chain. This situation is illustrated in this example. You see this example? The robber attacked Poirot. You see here the attack, assign a theta role to Poirot. Okay, if this is a kind of, and the verb attack can assign an accusative case to Poirot because we have a kind of active sentence here and there is no problem. But if we have a kind of passive verb, will be attacked. So as I told you, the verb cannot assign case, so the movement is obligatory. Poirot moves to the subject position, which is empty, and here the will can assign nominative case to the Poirot. But Poirot, can give or absorb the theta role in this condition, in this position. So when it is near to the verb attack, it can be assigned the theta role. So then for case marking, moves to the subject position to be case marked by the verb. So here, in the bottom of the sentence, it can give it, theta role by the verb, and then moves to the subject position to be assigned the case by the verb will here, the nominative case. So this is the theta roles of the MP, and you see here there is a kind of chain between the Poirot, and this is the here the E form here. So this is a kind of chain which this chain has one theta role which was assigned in the bottom of this sentence, and it has a kind of one case which is assigned in the in the first place of the sentence. From this first discussion, the reader can see that empty position, this is the abbreviation of empty position, count as much in our theory as positions that are filled. Okay, it's not it's the place of the moved element, the Poirot. So this is a kind of chain. So the theta role can assign to the chain. Okay, this is the empty position of the moved element, the Poirot. So this is the movement and the chains, as I told you in this example according to this example. So we call it the chain, okay? And the last, slide of this chapter is about case and NP licensing. Recall that we discussed the question as to whether the lexical information associated with a head should specify the categorical properties of its argument in chapter 1. We considered examples such as the following here. Look at the examples. I asked what the time was. We can say I asked the time. There is no problem. This is the MP, the time, near the verb ask, and there is no problem. The ask can assign case to the time. Another example, I inquire what time it was. That's okay, but we cannot say I inquired the time. We cannot use the MP near the verb inquire. This is ungrammatical. And the third one, I wondered what time it was. But we cannot say I wondered the time. Again, we cannot use this MP near the wonder. It was proposed that we do not need to specify that verbs like ask, inquire, and wonder select the CP, since CP is the canonical structural representation of question, and that's okay. We can use CP near the asked, the inquire, and the wonder. There is no problem. However, we suggest that perhaps non-canonical realization of arguments should be specified lexically, so that the lexical information associated with ask, here you see in this example, could specify that this verb selects an NP complement. So that's okay. We can say I asked the time. Okay, this is the MP, and we can use it near the ask, and there is no problem. Wonder and inquire would lack that specification. You see here, we cannot use MP near the inquire, and we cannot use MP near the wonder. So we can conclude that these two verbs, wonder and inquire, would lack that specification like ask. Okay, NP complements which receive a question interpretation are called concealed question. So these two kind of examples here, I inquired the time and I wondered the time, are ungrammatical because they violate the categorical selection properties of the verbs inquire and wonder respectively. So there is we can conclude in this part that there is a kind of lexical information for each word. Okay, so here ask, in the lexical information of ask, we can use a kind of NP, the time near the ask, and that's okay. Okay, the sentence is correct. But in the lexical information of these two verbs, inquire and wonder, we cannot use the MP near these kinds of verbs. So they becomes ungrammatical, as you see here. So it depends on the lexical information of each word. Okay, that's the end of this chapter, the case system and the case filter. As you see, again, in this session we talk about the passivization and the properties of the passive verb. As I told you, the passive verb cannot assign case to the complement NP, so the movement is obligatory and the object should move to the subject position. Then we talk about the visibility and the chain and the movement, as you see in the previous example. And at last we talk about the case and NP licensing, and we talk about the the lexical information for each word, as you see here. And you see here there are some differences between lexical information between words. Okay, thank you for your attention, and that's enough for today, and goodbye everybody.